Good evening, everybody. This is Smita Kapoor, co-founder of Kelp HR. I come to you this evening with a very interesting topic on the might of LNA, learning need analysis. Limited budgets, cost-effective solutions, need to ensure bullseye targeting of monies and resources at areas where learning and development is needed, and a guaranteed and measurable positive return on investment. Does this really sound like bucket full of challenges you are facing as learning and development executive of your organization? This is where we need LNA, or learning need analysis, as we all call it. Okay, it plays a critical role. LNA is vital to determine the gap between the existing skills, knowledge, and abilities of employees and those that are needed for the organization to function at a desired level and more. Effective LNA is particularly vital in today's changing workplace as new technologies and flexible working practices are becoming widespread. Aims to focus the spotlight on the following critical aspects of effective LNA. How can an organization analyze what the learning needs are before setting the learning calendar and curriculum? How can an
We have
organization
one
make this
connection, two
a
connection.
continuous, sustainable
One
activity
minute.
that shows tangible benefit in monetary and non-monetary terms to an organization? How can employing specialists, consultants for training make the systematic planning, analysis, and coordination across the organization? Joining us in our discussion today is Satya. Capability development programs, leadership development programs, and anchors various organization interventions. She also wears the cap of organization development specialist for ThoughtWorks, facilitating various change programs. She has more than 10 years of experience in L&OD function, leadership development, coaching, employee engagement, and branding. We just pulled her out of one coaching assignment that she was on. Satya's profile of passion and role dimensions are great prefaces to integrated aspects of learning and its need analysis. Though her versatile experience and expertise, we will take you through the different dimensions of the power of L&A and how it can benefit any of your organizations. Welcome, Satya.
Thank you for having me, Smita, and thank you for such a warm welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Satya, getting directly to business. List down some couple of questions in front of you, and you're going to help us, decode the LNA might. Okay, so straight away to the question one is lack of skills, knowledge, or understanding, or change in the workplace. These hinder employees in fulfillment of their existing job responsibilities and organization from achieving their goals. What are the elements of an effective TNA that addresses these issues and identifies the right action to be taken?
So let me. There are two parts to your question. One is you're asking what are the definitive elements of an effective TNA, and the second is what are the right actions, right programs, what are the right steps that needs to be taken to go through a good TNA. Let me answer your first question. So when you look at a typical effective comprehensive LNA, it should have two arms to it. The first one is being able to look at the current capability portfolio of your organization. When I say capability portfolio, it's about the various capabilities that are required across levels, across different roles in the organization. So the overall capability portfolio of the organization as it is currently, and what are the levels of capability? Are they at level 1? Are they at a novice level? Are they at an intermediate level? Are they at an expert level? What are the various levels of each capability that are there in the current organization? And what are the gaps? Where does the organization actually want these capabilities levels to be across various capabilities that you've listed down in your portfolio? And what are the gaps for your organization to run its operations smoothly in this current given period in time? So this is the tactical arm of your learning needs analysis. The other critical element of your learning needs analysis is to be able to look at what are the new, additional, or different capabilities that are required for your organization from a future growth and from a future perspective in mind. What is the organization's vision? What is the organization's future growth plans? And thereby, what are the new additional different capabilities that the organization needs to invest in? So this would be the strategic arm of your learning needs analysis. So your comprehensive learning needs analysis should have two factors. It should be able to identify your current performance gaps and performance needs of both the individual and the business. And it should also be able to facilitate future growth and career needs of both the organization and the individual through your learning needs program. Let's keep it very simple, right? What are some of the questions that you will typically ask an individual when you have to put a learning plan for an individual? You ask them, how do they see themselves performing in their current role? What are some of the things that they do well, which is what are their strengths, and how is it applying in the role that they are doing? What are some of the areas that they struggle with in their current role? What would they need in terms of knowledge, skills, opportunities, experiences, support, training programs, etc., so they can up the levels of their performance and achieve excellence in the current role that they're doing? Then you go ahead and ask them, what do you see yourself doing 3 years from now? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And what are some of the things that you need to add to your portfolio or to your resume? Things that you need to learn, the opportunities, the projects that you would like to work with, etc., to get you to where you want to go in the next 2 years and in the next 5 years. What are the new abilities, experience, skills, knowledge, etc., so that you can achieve your future objectives. Now, these are typical questions that you ask your individual when you're trying to understand an individual's learning need. Just abstract it to the organizational level. A good learning needs analysis should be able to cover all of these questions at the organizational level. I would typically look for some of these elements these are some of the basic fundamental elements in your learning needs analysis. Now, if I have to go back to the second part of your question in terms of saying, how do you then, look at the right programs or the right actions or the right components of a typical LNA? There are many ways in which you could look at different learning needs, right? I personally use a very, very simple way of organizing some of these various things that come into a learning needs analysis. I use a trifecta. The first one is what I call as knowledge and experience. When I say knowledge and experience, I mean which is largely functional knowledge and role-related experience, which is one trifecta which is one arm of the trifecta that goes into your learning needs. Second is the skills and practice, both functional and behavioral skills. The third arm is your beliefs and attitudes. Now, this is completely behavioral in nature, which is transformative in nature. You can call it leadership, you can call it mindset. It is very simple. I think most learning specialists, L&D folks, HR folks, they have a very simple model called the knowledge, skills, and attitudes model. The only thing I've added here is I club knowledge and experience together because I believe if you want to look at learning needs, you have to look at just not imparting knowledge to an individual in terms of, I don't know, it could be very academic programs like MBA or executive programs, training programs, whose main objectives lie in theoretical concepts. I also had experience because a lot of this knowledge gains weightage only if it comes with hearing from the experiences of others, figuring out how one can apply this knowledge in their own work. So the experience is a crucial part of a learning needs map. The second thing, so if I have to go a little bit more into knowledge and experience related programs, they could be very informal. You could have book readings, you could have shadowing wherein people learn from each other's experience, seeing it in action, experience sharing sessions, role expectations sharing sessions. The webinar like we are doing right now is another example of knowledge and experience sharing. People have very focused programs such as the mini MBAs, executive programs, etc. All of these cover largely functional areas. It could be very simple as having a session where you have about organizational values and visions. It's again falls under knowledge and experience. An anti-sexual harassment session, again knowledge and experience session. Now all of this, the main focus is about educating your employees and increasing their knowledge base. The second element that you can organize your learning needs under is a slightly tricky one. It is called skills and practice. A lot of us, what we do, we just do a 2-day skill building program and we just drop it. It's almost like a tick box against the programs that we are supposed to offer. Now it's tricky because of that. Now the skill and practice, it could be any functional skill. It could be functional skills such as financial planning, systems thinking, managing risks. It could be any of these. It could be very behavioral skills like negotiation skills, crucial conversations, and so on. So these skills need the right concepts. Your programs need to be able to provide a wide variety of tools and techniques for people to know how to actually work with the skill, to apply the skill. And enough time and space should be provided as a part of your learning programs for these skills to be practiced, provided feedback with, a lot of coaching. All of these need to fall under your skills and practice bucket. Sufficient support through practice sessions, experimental sessions, feedback, coaching, all of this needs to become a part of your skill building sessions. Now, that's the second part of it. The third element, or the third category under which you can look at your learning needs is perhaps most significant and perhaps most transformative in nature, which works with your mental models. It could work with your beliefs and attitudes. It could be any mental model. It could be a mental model about an individual's mental model about his own self-image, his own confidence levels, or his own rigid beliefs about how one needs to work with the team, how one needs to work with the client. It could be anything. It really works at an individual, personal, self, inside-out level. It's very transformative in nature. A lot of your leadership development typically falls under some of this third category. We call it the beliefs and attitudes category. So these are the three typical categories that I will look for when I'm looking at learning needs. I'll just take one more minute to wrap up this question. If you have to bring it all together, or whatever we spoke about, when a client or a stakeholder comes to you and says, we want this bunch of individuals to become better managers, then your LNA should be able to cover knowledge and experience needs, skill and practice needs, as well as the belief and attitude areas for all of these individuals. This way you can ensure that it is comprehensive and an appropriate program is offered for a particular bunch of individuals for a particular need. Let me stop here. Smita, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So I think it's amazing the way you are using the trifecta way to analyze your LNA. You added experiences, while knowledge, skills, and behavior was something that we have all learned through our college and heard and done that. But adding experiences and your reasoning for adding experiences is really solid. I think that people who have logged in should take back this as a very key thing. Moving to my next set of questions is that training needs are generally categorized in three categories. One is those which you can anticipate. One that arise out of monitoring via your performance management, via your day-to-day conversations with your managers. Third one are the unexpected problems which comes up your way. So given the complexity of three types that can be ensured, that the identification of training need is integrated across the organization, and how individual functions and departments need to throw their individual limited resources at each problem as it arises, duplicating efforts and dissipating energy.
Okay, so in your learning needs analysis and in building capabilities and competencies in your people, if you keep the focus right only on the current performance and performance gaps, then you might run the risk of just being reactive. Um, you will have to start looking at ways and means of building capabilities with a future focus. Uh, Simply said, your L&D programs should be investing in capabilities for the future, not just for the present. Now that's strategic. That way you can really not be focusing on building immediate performance requirements that come up, performance gap requirements that come up. When you're building for the future, you in a way preempt some of these urgent immediately address some of these training needs that we have and so on. So as long as you bring in a balance of a future perspective into your LNA, you somewhere hedge yourself from some of these unexpected, immediate, let's solve the crisis right away. There seems to be a capability gap that is widening. Let's solve it immediately. Those kind of requirements. Ask yourself, right, whose voices go into the process of identifying the learning needs of an individual and the business. So that's very critical to ensure, you have a very solid, seamless, highly integrated, balanced learning. Your learning needs identification process, along with identifying the current gaps and future needs, it should involve 5 voices. One, the voice of the employee himself or herself. 2, the voice of the customer or the client. 3, the voice of technology. 4, the voice of the organization. And finally, depending on what kind of organization you belong with, you can add on to the voice of the larger society. So these 5 voices need to be a part of your learning needs identification process. The voice of the employee is where both the employee as well as the manager articulate current performance gaps, possibilities of taking one's performance to the next level, career and growth plans of a particular individual, and thereby his or her learning journey. Now, this is a critical element which needs to voice of the employee, which needs to go into your learning needs identification process. The second is the voice of the customer. Now, this brings in all the stakeholders who can very well represent what the client expects from you and your business and your employees. It could be your sales and development guys, it could be your delivery managers, it could be your client relationship folks, it could be your portfolio folks, it could be your marketing folks. It could even be folks who are the voice of the internal customer. Now, this voice of the customer expectations from your organization, from your business and employees needs to become a part of your learning needs analysis. The third is the voice of the technology. Now, the voice of the technology, you can replace the word technology with the voice of your particular business service, a business or service that you're doing. Now, this brings in stakeholders who represent what are the services, products, the USP of your particular organization, the competitive advantage of your business, of your product, service, etc. Now, what this voice of technology represents actually gives in the entire capability that requires to go into the organization in the form of what is it that one sells or what is it that one offers as one to the business. It is a unique selling proposition of your organization, and your learning needs should be able to capture developing that, investing in it with both the current and the future perspective. The fourth voice is the voice of the organization. Now, going back to the voice of the technology, some of the representatives of your voice of technology would typically be your, if you're a software company, it could be your CTOs, your chief technology officers, your technology architects, your tech principals, your people responsible for coming up with technology solutions, etc. The voice of the organization. Now, this brings in your organizational leaders who represent who can actually talk to you and share information about the organizational issues at a strategic level, the realities of the organization, its pushes and pulls and the struggles that the organization is going through, the future progress path for the business and the employees. Now, this is just not at a business level, but this is both, it is at the cultural level. It is about saying what is it that we stand as an organization for? What are our cultural parameters? What are our business struggles? What are the capabilities that we need to ensure that all of this is taken care of and we are on the right path? Now, this voice of the organization also needs to be a part of your learning needs. Now, most organizations use only performance reviews and appraisals as the key input for your learning needs. But you need to put in, as learning and development professionals and people who manage this function, you need to have various processes and periodic dialogues and discussions with various stakeholders. Ensure all the voices are continuously gathered, and it should be made a part of your learning and development plan. L&D cannot really afford to operate as a silo, right? It has to facilitate a learning organization, and it is only possible if you're actively and continuously partnering with all of these various stakeholders. You know, processes like performance reviews give their own data. HR business partners, again, another key voice of this organization, and the employee, they do their one-on-ones, they do stay interviews, they do skip-level meetings. Does this data flow into your learning needs analysis? Or is this data lying just, you know, for various other processes and does not really flow into your LNE? People managers have career planning conversations with your team members, and I'm sure they do it periodically. Now, does that data flow into your learning needs analysis? As L&D folks, are you a part of business strategy discussions where talks about capability gaps and future requirements, succession planning, etc., are being had as a part of your larger business strategy, not as a separate discussion, but together as a part of your business strategy? Are you guys involved in those discussions? Now, L&D folks, they need to be having scheduled periodic discussions with these various stakeholders in material of, you know, whether it is a learning needs analysis process. But there needs to be a continuous way in which they have a pulse on the capability portfolio of the organization, where it is, where it needs to be, and what needs to be done for the future. You could do one-on-ones, you could do focus group discussions. All of this comprehensive data collection needs to happen continuously and should feed into your LNE. Your learning plan or calendar cannot be static. It has to be dynamic and reviewed periodically and updated through with all of these voices. You know, once in 6 months would be ideal, but I know I'm asking for too much.
Yeah. I mean, it is so comprehensive, and I see that so much of data need to flow in to get your real learning need analysis, as per what I understand from you. So I really want to understand, are organizations prepared to, you know, be able to capture data at those levels? So moving to my next question is that variance analysis, it's a very simple tool that we use to monitor budgets. Okay, so I wanted to know whether the same principle is used, replacing the budget numbers by specific performance standards and indicators to monitor and analyze training needs. In your experience, how may this be done?
Okay, so just to add on to your question, and you know, the question around the data collection, I think in my experience, organizations, especially HR function in large organizations and medium scale organizations, are very robust in collecting this data. I think the only trick would be, how do you then get all this data, make sense out of this data, flow this data, categorize it, and then create a larger plan? And are we consciously and intentionally, you know, doing this? Coming back to your next question, which was around the various analysis, and you know, how do we use the same principle to replace budget numbers with specific performance standards and indicators? If I understand your question right, you're asking how can one look at measuring the gaps in performance through various measures, and can that feed into your LNA?
Yes.
Yeah. Organizations do this through a process called through a process called competency mapping. Now, in this, each role has a defined set of competencies. So, if you are, let's say, a HR business partner, then you will have to have a good understanding of the business. Now, that's one competency. You should have good communication skills. You should have good influencing skills. So, you have a defined set of competencies, and each competency is measured against levels. So if you are a business partner for, let's say, 300 folks, you should have an understanding of a business. That particular competency should be at a level 3. Now this level 3 could be any kind of a measure. It could be called, some organizations say level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. There is novice, intermediate, advanced, expert. So these levels are actually well described progressions and growths in that particular respective competency. So during performance reviews, what happens is the individual performances are measured against these competencies. The gaps are identified, and that data flows into an individual's development plan. An organization specifically looks for an individual development plan at the end of its performance appraisal. So you have, let's say, negotiating skills, then I say, okay, you should be at a level, you should be at a very advanced level. However, from your performance and the way you've performed in the last 6 months, so you're just only at an intermediate level. So there is a gap for you. You have to up your negotiation skills or your influencing skills or whatever. That goes into a part of your individual development plan. The performance standards are really indicators. They are indicators and measures of a specific outcome. For example, customer satisfaction is a performance indicator. Quality of code written is another indicator. Now, measuring these indicators usually helps you understanding the effectiveness of your learning programs. But are they good indicators of what exactly is the training program that needs to be given for a particular individual? May or may not be. For example, if you say my performance rating was 2.5 on a scale of 4, and you have certain competencies in your performance and you're measured against it, and they say there are these gaps. Now, can I just use this data just like that? Now, in my point of view, using these performance measures might not really be a complete picture. These are only indicators of how the performance of a person's performance has been, and his performance could be affected by many factors. It could be anywhere from saying a role fitment issue, to a personal stress issue, to a lack of interest in the project, bad managers, interpersonal issues, or it could simply be fatigue. So a person's performance indicates only his performance and need not essentially be a complete picture of whether the person has capability or the right kind of capability. It's possible that he could have had great capabilities. It could simply have been that he was not interested. Or it could have simply been that he was just fatigued. He just had been doing projects after project and he's probably at a burnout stage. It could be that he's just got a bad manager and delegation is not working. So a performance measure cannot really be a complete picture of what kind of training needs to be given for that particular person. However, performance measures are good checkpoints to see if your learning program is really worked or not. You say, hey, this guy needs to improve his negotiation skills. He's a sales guy, and has his performance really improved because of a certain program that you had given him? It's possible a good checkpoint for you to see whether it's affected performance or not. But then again, you will never needs to have it on because there's a lot of subjective element that goes into some of these things.
Satya, can you hear me?
Yes, Smita.
Okay, great. Satya, very clearly, competency mapping is something one from, right? We understand very clearly from this. So my next question, Satya, is there are 4 levels of stakeholders that seem to emerge who can help organizations identify their learning needs. Clearly, one is the senior level management, next is the middle level management, third is the subject matter experts, and fourth are the trainers. Of these 4, who would you say it is the most beneficial for an organization to partner with external expertise or the above 4 stakeholders to come up with a consolidated analysis of diverse factors and make such an integrated organization, especially when there is so much of pressure on cost and bandwidth on HR function?
Actually, that's a great question. All these 4 folks are very, very important stakeholders in identifying the learning needs analysis. However, the employees and the business partners, business HR partners, are just as important in terms of being a part of the identifying learning needs process. Uh, you know, one needs to really ask oneself the question: what is the kind of capabilities that are there in your respective L&D function? Now, if your L&D function truly wears the hat of the experts and they are subject matter experts themselves, then they could partner with an external SME or a consultant or trainers, um, and partner with them as equals, and they could do the L&A together. Now that partnering can be very, very effective if there is an SME internally and an L&D person and an external SME coming together is a great collaborative work, because the L&D SME, really internal person, really brings in the organizational context, the internal dynamics, the internal demands, the entire business context, internal context is being represented through this L&D SME. The external perspective flows in from your external consultant. Now that makes a very robust L&A. Now, if your L&D function, however, just wears the hat of the managerial hat, and they really haven't invested in their subject matter expertise, either because of the nature of the organization or because of the belief that it's a large scale organization and it is more managerial in nature, which means that you just facilitate programs and you don't essentially have subject matter expertise, then it definitely helps to bring an external SME into the picture. You see, external consultants can be really used for 3 kinds of work in your learning needs analysis. The first one is they could be used as an extra pair of hands. There is very strong internal subject matter expertise in the HR function, but there is a bandwidth shortage. The HR folks are really, really guys who are pulled in so many different directions. They're doing so many different kinds of work. There is definitely a shortage of bandwidth for these guys at any point in time. The leaders in the organization or the employees of the organization might not really agree to that point, but truly that's the case of an HR person. So if there is a bandwidth shortage and there is an SME internally, then you could bring an external consultant as an extra pair of hands. The second way you can use the SME is where there is relatively less expertise in the HR function internally, and the SMEs can lead, external SMEs can lead the L&A. There's no partnership over here. You simply ask the guy to come in and lead the L&A. You just facilitate the whole process for this guy or for this girl and then let them do their work. The third way is where we already talked about, is where you collaborate and co-create. So these are 3 essential ways in which you can really work with your external SMEs or consultants. Does that answer your question, Smita? Sorry, Smita, I can't hear you.
Absolutely, Satya, and I think you are bang on the 3 things that KELP HR provides. We are the extra pair of hands for the organizations, we are the SMEs, and we are the co-partners and collaborators. Absolutely, Satya. And we really hope to be in these 3 roles for many organizations, yeah, the future of many organizations. So moving to my next question is, let's assume we got our hands around the integration and consolidation of training needs. The next big thing would be to identify the levels of learnings across the hierarchy. So there is seamless progression of learning. How can competency skills across career progression levels in an organization be blended into learning needs assessment and analysis?
Okay. So actually, that's I think a lot of organizations really struggle to really get this particular part of it bang on, right? To really get very effective and efficient. Now, as long as your learning needs analysis takes into account career growth plans and needs of the individuals, and if that is incorporated in your learning needs analysis, you've actually covered this to a certain extent. You see, McKinsey has a way of looking at business plans. It looks at Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. Horizon 1 is very short term in terms of being 6 months to 1 year. Horizon 2 is about 2 to 3 years. Horizon 3 is about 3 to 5 years, not longer than that. Now they look at business capabilities, business growth, business strategy as H1, H2, and H3 horizon. Now like, I think I mean, what we've been trying to do in ThoughtWorks and in some of the organizations earlier that I've been worked with is also to be able to make capability gaps and growth of the individual and organization, both the individual and the organization from a H1, H2, and H3 horizon perspectives. Now that is important to know because then it helps you to incorporate progression, career movements, promotions, succession planning, etc. from an immediate need to a 5 year horizon. Now it might seem like, do I then have to put in a learning needs analysis plan for 5 years? Not essentially. However, your learning needs analysis or your learning calendar should you should typically know what you're going to cover in the next 2 years at least. And that's what you might want to offer the learning calendar to the organization at a 6 monthly periodical way or a 1 year periodical way. But overall, you should have a H1, H2, H3 horizon of how the capability building and the learning calendar and the learning plan of your organization more or less looks like. Again, it is not static, it is a dynamic one. You will have to continuously review it with all the stakeholders, bring in the voices of all the stakeholders that we talked about before, and keep reviewing it. And that's where the strategic element of your learning and development team comes in. So most organizations, like we talked about, use competency models, mapping models for progression. Promotions from individual contributors to team leads, to project managers, to program managers, to heads of business, etc. Now that's a typical promotion or a progression, career progression. And that's for an operational role. For a technical role, it could be something from an individual contributor to a tech lead, to technology architect, to vice president technology, or the CTO, or the capability building in charge. It depends on what the career plan movement for technology guys are. Transitions into new roles. When I say, okay, now I've been an engineer for 3 years, now I want to become, let's say, a finance guy. So that's a transition into a completely new role, and a lot of organizations are encouraging these transitions into roles. Lateral movements that are cross-functional in nature. Again, a transition into a new role could simply be from moving from being a HRIS person to being a performance management person. Cross-functional could be an engineer moving from an engineering function to an operational function. So all of these transitions, progressions, they're all based on your competency mapping models. What are the various roles that are there in an organization? And for each role, what are the various competencies that are required? And what are the levels of these competencies that are required? During your learning needs analysis, focusing specifically on the career movements, both planned and projected career movements, ensures that you are covering the progression bit of it. The competencies the organization and the individuals need to invest in for each of these planned and projected desired movements over a period of 1 to 2 years or 2 to 3 years really should flow into your learning needs analysis. Now, if your organization does not have a competency map, your learning needs analysis can simply look at what your typical promotion progression process is. What are the frameworks that an organization uses for some of your promotion processes? Probably they use job descriptions, um, event-based interviews, etc. Now look at what of these competencies these throw up. Can you then bring it into a part of your career development conversations into an individual, see what his growth needs are, and can that input flow into your LNE? Now, your learning needs analysis also specifically focus on succession planning, especially at the leadership level. As you grow higher up in the organization, succession planning really becomes a focused area for your learning needs analysis. So these are various ways in which you can really look at integrating career progressions into your learning needs.
So, Satya, you really touched upon some very important aspects in case people don't have competency mapping, because a lot of organizations which may not be as mature as yours would not have competency mapping. And you touched upon how by using promotion, progression discussions, all those inputs should be used in LNA. So that's really good point that you have got to this forum, because we could have participants who do not have competency mapping in the organization, and to put that together is a big thing. So that's great. Moving to my next question, Satya, quickly, because I see we are running short on time. Some training needs can be met by using internal expertise, while others definitely need external assistance. Now, how would learning function determine that? If informal training is adequate, or if formal training courses are required, which of the training may be done internally, which needs to be done externally? So how would you identify that or determine that as a learning head?
So typically you look at, if you remember in the initial that we talked about knowledge and experience being one bucket in which you can look at your learning needs, right? So when you're looking at knowledge and experience, immense amount of that knowledge and experience is already lying there within an organization. So it is important for your learning needs analysis team or your learning development team to go back and look at what are the kinds of expertise that is actually lying there within the organization. So we have a good grasp of the internal expertise and who are these guys, who are these employees, who are these women who are extremely good at what they do in terms of their expertise and knowledge, and for a wide range of experiences. Now, a lot of this can be shared internally through webinars, through knowledge sharing sessions. You can incentivize some of these sessions. You can even pick some of these internal guys, to train the trainers for them and get them to go ahead and start sharing knowledge. Now this has to be incentivized in some form or recognized and acknowledged in some form. So a lot of your internal expertise can be tapped in for replicating it and for sharing it, and thereby creating a learning organization for yourself. Which means that people who go through these knowledge sharing sessions can then take back and start blogging about it, start writing about it, share it among their team members in knowledge sharing sessions, etc. So some of these are internal in nature. External expertise needs to come in specifically in skill building areas, as well as in the third bit, which is about your beliefs and attitude area. Now, external expertise, again, the way at least I would use it is if you look at some of the skill building programs, the techniques and the expertise can come in from the external folks. But internally, the context of the organization, the case studies, the role plays, the kind of scenarios that people encounter, what is the nature of the business, what's the nature of the challenge, all of this knowledge lies actually internally. Now, you will have to pick up the right stakeholders to essentially partner with these external skill building experts so that it is not only a generic program, but it is a program that is extremely customized to your group, to your particular business unit, or to the particular set. So you will have to have internal stakeholders. If it may not essentially be expertise, but internal stakeholders who have a good sense of what's happening and what's the nature of the struggle, to partner with your external expertise. And I would typically put skill building programs as something which you can go in for external guys. The communication skills, negotiation, difficult conversations, financial planning, some of these very skill building things where expertise is immense outside. You just need to partner with the right people to make it practical, to make it contextual, to make it applicable, etc. You will also have to have good coaches and mentors to support your learning needs analysis, and your coaches and mentors are essentially internal to the organization. So it is just not important for someone to really know, how do I go about having a difficult client discussion? Now, I can provide you with the skills of how do you have a difficult conversation, the essentials of consulting skills. An external guy might come in and even do some case studies, etc. But you will have to need an internal person to whom you can go back, and who's an internal coach, an internal expert, or somebody who's really good at client relationships to really guide and coach the person. So you will have to end up marrying these both in your training needs analysis. Similarly, if you go back to the third bucket, which is transformative in nature, I think this can be done only with the help of an external expertise, an external consultant. When you're looking at leadership development, when you're looking at transformative changes, this person, for example, you might have to say, this person is great as a business guy, but he's just not able to break whatever it is boundaries that he has to really rise up to the next level. There seems to be some struggle where this person can't rise up to the next level and take on the higher level of responsibilities. Now, it's not about capabilities, really. I think at that particular point, your learning needs analysis will, and your conversations will really throw out issues of beliefs, attitudes, mindsets, not confident enough, not being sure, can't, counter authority, etc. So some of these little things which are very, very fundamental to an individual, which are at an attitude level, can be worked with only with an external consultant, because it's about opening up, it's about allowing oneself to be vulnerable, it's about being able to not worry about safety, not worry about how does it happen. If I have to talk about my problems and my struggles to an internal person, it just can't happen. I think people are too guarded. It has to happen only with an external expertise, an external consultant, a neutral party who comes in. So for your beliefs and attitudes, I would solidly, without doubt, go with an external expertise. Does it help, Smita? Hello?
Satya, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Sorry, it seems like we lost each other for a minute.
Yeah, there was an issue.
You want me to talk about it again? Where were we when we lost?
Okay. I'm really sorry. There was some issue with the internet. Satya, what I was. I mean, I missed a couple of things, but let me ask you this about what I liked when you were speaking about within the organization incentivizing your internal trainers. I think that's a very good idea. We should be using that as a forum, and we should be encouraging such people who can really display, and we could use their skills to enhance their skills as well as our internal folks' skills. So that is what I was listening into. I will, as pressing on time, I will quickly move to another question. which is in partnering with external expertise. What are the capabilities you look for being a learning head?
So the key element for me is, does this external consultant really get the culture of my organization? Um, are they well versed in understanding what is the unique configuration of this particular organization? What is the nature of the business that they do? And because of the culture and the nature of the business that they do, they should be very, very quick to pick up the struggles of the organization, the dilemmas of the organization, the dynamics that are existing in the organization. So somebody who can quickly be clued into some of these things. The second thing that I typically look for is a very strong level of expertise in the particular area of work. And expertise is non-negotiable. And I have found a lot of trainers, to my own dismay, that you're very quick to give gyan. For lack of a better word, there's a lot of, there's, wisdom, pearls of wisdom that is being shared, which is very great. It also has to be anchored with very strong knowledge in psychology, behavior, well-read, conceptual knowledge, etc. So expertise at that level is what you look for. You want to have a partner who is very, very thorough in knowledge, concepts, um, and experience as well. The third thing that you look for is someone who can live by what they teach, right? I don't want somebody who's coming and talking to me about influencing skills and wanting to deliver a program on influencing, but he or she is not able to influence me in the conversation that we're currently having. If I experience the external facilitator as um, somebody who is not a good listener, who's not able to ask the right kind of questions, then I kind of believe that whatever it is that they're teaching, they've not been able to incorporate it. So you really want to look for somebody who lives and practices what they really offer as programs to the rest of the. So if you're teaching about leadership development, you need to have a good grasp of um, your own leadership styles, your own propensities, your own blind spots, and really be able to offer it to the audience. So that's another part. Final one that I look for is, can they be flexible and can they really co-create programs with us? Can they spend the time and energy really listening to us and be able to actually not sell what they have, but really be able to customize and create something that is applicable for my organization? Do they have the time and energy and investment for it? These are some of the things that I typically look for in an external consultant.
Okay, that's really good feedback, and we have folks who have logged in as an external consultants whom we work with. I think that's a good message from you, Satya, that these are the things that ThoughtWorks as an organization, you all as a LNOD head would be looking for. So, Satya, moving to my last question that I have come up with, then we'll move to audience question, is very critical to LNOD, that is return on investment. Okay, it is non-negotiable. Okay, must be in any plan spent. Surveys have shown quantifiable and measurable return on investment in well-planned and executed LNAs. In your experience, and specifically in the organization you architected learning solutions, how did ROI reflect in their business performances?
The ROI is really tricky business. um, this is all it asks for ROI. If only the learning and development folks have a free hand and not really be bothered about ROI, I think we would have a much more solid, free, liberated job of doing what we do. But the nature of the business is such that it asks for ROI. So typically, in most of the learning assignments that we take up, the question that I ask is to the clients and to the stakeholders is, what is the outcome that you're really looking for at the end of the program? If a particular learning program is like a black box, and a group of people go through it, and they come out of it, now what does this group look like, and what is the outcome that you really seek from this group? And if we say, let's say you're doing a leadership development program, and if the stakeholder says, at the end of your program, I would want, Smita, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Lost you for a minute. At the end of the program, if they say, I want at least, out of the 12 people who have gone through the program, I want at least 3 folks to be able to take on X, Y, and Z roles. And that's the outcome that I seek. Now, now as an L&D person, you will have to negotiate with the outcome. Saying, hey, I can guarantee 2, I can't guarantee 3. Now, that's the first thing that learning and development folks really need to focus on and saying, you will know as an L&D person how successful your program is going to be, how effective your program is going to be, based on what the kind of program that you have designed, based on the expertise that you've pulled in, whether it's internal or external, depending upon the length of the programs that you have designed, depending upon the support systems that you have provided, depending upon the projects for practice that the employees go through, depending on various factors, you will have a good sense of how effective this program is going to be. And you will have to negotiate for that outcome and say, no, not 3, perhaps 1, perhaps 2. Is that okay? Once the negotiation is done, then you just target on asking what is a good measure of this outcome. One is, of course, 2 people being leaders. The second is saying, you know what, I need X customers to come in, or you know, I want these guys to go out and start increasing, you know, our share by another 10%. Is that a good measure for your outcome? And then you probably say, again, negotiating whether it is really workable or not. Now, that's one way of going into saying, really look at how do you now translate some of the outcome into measurable, into costs. Let's say if 2 guys need to be becoming leaders, and they need to, after they go through the LD program, then your cost should be, if these guys have to be brought in from outside, if you have to recruit them from outside, this would be your recruitment cost, this would be your replacement costs. Maybe take about 1 year to just catch up, and that would be your investment cost. Now, all of this would be costs that you will incur. Now, that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is really saying, a manager development program happens, you want to increase the engagement levels of the organization. Now, the outcome is that everybody should really be feeling more engaged. But simply, your engagement scores could be one form of measuring the outcome of the organization. You look at the retention rate. If you look at your, you know, because of increased engagement, has retention numbers increased? Because retention numbers have increased, how much have you really saved for the organization? Now, these are some ways in which you can really look at ROI, but the critical question to ask is, what's the outcome that you're seeking, and how can one measure the outcome? And L&D folks really need to get a little bit more strategic and a little bit more negotiating in nature to see through that these ROIs are not really the stars and the skies and the moons, but really something which is measurable and which is really practical.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that makes a lot of sense, Satya, the way you think, and I think yes, everything can't be just measured by numbers, or you know, everything cannot have a value to it. So there are different kinds of values, while there is a value which needs to be looked at. So Satya, I'm going to take a pause and wait for some audience questions, which I think has started flowing in. The one that I read here on my this is LNA in my organization is dependent on kind of businesses coming in, not necessarily people needs. How do I convince my CEO to take holistic approach that you recommend?
So essentially, I think it's a fair point, because your learning and needs development has typically the business requirements which are primary, because the CEO just looks at what is the business really require. Now, while you're having the one way of looking at it is about saying that you will have to align your individual needs, individual growth and development needs to be aligned with business needs. And if that is being able to be showcased to your CEOs as well as to your employees, you might have a way of convincing your CEO. For example, an employee might simply come and say, hey, I'm interested in presentation skills, and let me, you know, I want to go through a presentation skills program. Now, the dialogue that you might want to have with your employee is about saying, how is your presentation skill really going to benefit the business? How do you see it adding value to yourself? And how do you see it adding value to your team? Now, if you're able to align that conversation with the individual, and if a group of individuals are able to see saying that, you know what, I want to go out and speak in external conferences, I want to go out and start, talking about some of the work that we've done and start marketing the organization in some of these, marketing fairs or whatever. And that's how I would like to offer it for the organization. Then you see the commitment from the individual saying, okay, we'll invest in you going through a 4-day program. Post that, will you be able to sign up for 1 or 2 internal conferences or external conferences? And now you take it back to your CEO and say, hey, you know what, this is how the business benefits look like. You're going to get a lot more visibility for the organization. There's going to be a lot more employer branding for your organization, etc. And thereby you align your business needs with the individual needs. If an individual wants to do, let's say, I want to go join a guitar course. I mean, sometimes individuals do come up with bizarre learning requests. So, and if we're not able to really see how it aligns with the organization's current needs or future needs, one needs to have that expectation setting with the individual as well as with the business.
So great. I think Amit has his response. Amit, that's how you have to convince your CEO, by attaching to your organizational needs and goals. Next question I got is from Shanti. I've pasted it. Is LNA relevant only to large organization? How relevant it is for a small-sized organization?
If you are a part of a small-sized organization, you are the luckiest person to really do learning and development for those folks, because it's easier to have subjective one-on-one conversations in a small-sized organization. It's easier for you to really capture the data. It's really what individuals need, what the business needs, what different stakeholders need. All of these conversations can really happen in an open forum in a small-sized organization. You don't have to have a great process in place saying every year I will do a learning needs analysis, etc. So what you might not really want to do is have a solid process. You could simply make it very, very informal way of collecting your learning needs and creating programs. Very focused, very customized programs for small-sized organizations. In fact, one of the things that I personally enjoy in ThoughtWorks is that I do only very few pan-India programs. Overall, across India, we are about 3,000 folks. We are about 1,000 odd folks. And in each office, we have 5 different offices. I enjoy doing programs more for the office folks, which is 150 folks, being able to understand what Chennai as an office needs, what Chennai folks need, and be able to really have those conversations with those folks and deliver programs which are very, very customized to them. They are also much more effective and much more welcomed by these smaller sized groups than the larger organization. So if you're in a small organization, more power to you, I say.
Yeah. So Shanti, I think you have your response. So I am not going to take any more questions on this because we have overshot our deadline by 3 minutes. Quickly, Satya, first of all, I want to thank you for sharing your experience. I mean, I have learned a lot in this webinar. I'm sure all the participants here would have learned. This will be on KelpHR website, so anybody who has missed it can also log in and watch it again. There will be transcripts of this also being provided. Learning need analysis is so important for, as Satya said, small or big organization, and it is easier in smaller organization than in larger organization, as she rightly pointed out that how interesting it is to have those conversations with smaller organization and your ability to reach everybody there. So thank you very much, Satya. You touched upon a lot of aspects of having an external party, having an extra pair of hands. I mean, I am too impressed by the role of an external expertise like KelpHR on this as part of learning need analysis. I think we have comprehensively covered the entire essence of this program as we started the might of LNA. Satya, any closing comments from your side?
No, thank you for inviting me. It's been lovely to talk to you. It's also, as I talk to you, I think a lot of my own thoughts have, have fallen in place. I have really figured out some of the things that I need to start going back and doing. And it's been thoroughly a wonderful, enjoyable experience. I've enjoyed working with HelpHR. And I know I reach out to you guys for, for an extra pair of hands, for co-creating, I just do all kinds of stuff with Kelp HR. So it's wonderful, and I'm thanking also the audience for, patiently putting up with and listening to our dialogue. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Satya. Thank you.